The morning Sarah Chen agreed to drive her uncle's delivery truck, she had no idea she was about to collide, quite literally, with destiny. Rain hammered against the windshield as she white-knuckled the steering wheel, her uncle's oversized jacket drowning her small frame. At 23, Sarah had imagined many futures for herself, finishing her nursing degree, maybe traveling, perhaps falling in love. None of those dreams included navigating a 15-year-old delivery truck through Manhattan's merciless morning traffic, while her uncle recovered from emergency surgery. But when family calls, you answer. That's what her mother had always taught her, even when answering meant sacrificing everything you'd worked for. The truck's brakes squealed as she pulled up to the loading dock of Chen's family. Restaurant Supply, the business her Uncle Wei had, built from nothing over 3 decades. Sarah's hands trembled as she checked the delivery manifest. 47 stops today. She'd already called the hospital twice that morning. Uncle Wei's heart attack had been severe, but he was stable. Still, the fear lingered like fog, thick and suffocating. He was the man who'd paid for her mother's cancer treatments, who'd shown up at every one of Sarah's high school graduations with flowers, who'd slipped her rent money when she was too proud to ask. This was the least she could do. "You sure you can handle this, sweetheart?" Miguel, the warehouse manager, eyed her skeptically as they loaded crates of produce and restaurant equipment. He'd worked for Uncle Wei for 15 years and knew every pothole on every route. "I've got this," Sarah lied, mustering confidence she didn't feel. The truth was, she'd barely slept. Between her overnight shift at the diner, morning classes, and now this, she was running on fumes and bad coffee. But Uncle Wei had no one else. His only son had moved to California and barely called. The business was everything to him, and she wouldn't let it crumble because of something as trivial as her exhaustion. By noon, Sarah had completed 32 deliveries. Her back ached from hauling equipment. Her clothes were soaked from the relentless rain, and she'd gotten lost twice despite the GPS. But she was doing it. Each signature on the delivery slip felt like a small victory, a promise kept. At stop 33, Mrs. Rodriguez at the Colombian bakery pressed a warm empanada into her hands. "For your uncle," she'd said, tears in her eyes. "Tell him we're praying for him." That's when Sarah understood. Uncle Wei wasn't just a supplier. He was part of these people's families, too. The accident happened at 2:47 p.m. on 5th Avenue. Sarah didn't see the sleek black Mercedes until it was too late. She'd been checking the address for her next delivery, a high-end restaurant in Midtown, when her tire caught a pothole filled with rainwater. The truck lurched. She overcorrected. Metal screamed against metal as the truck's side mirror caught the Mercedes's door, leaving a brutal scrape across the pristine paint job. "No, no, no!" Sarah's heart plummeted as she threw the truck into park and jumped out. The Mercedes was the kind of car that cost more than she'd earn in 5 years. Maybe 10. She approached the driver's window, preparing to grovel, to beg, to offer payment plans that would extend into her retirement. The window rolled down, and Sarah found herself staring at a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a business magazine. Mid-30s, sharp jawline, expensive suit, and eyes that were currently blazing with barely controlled fury. James Morrison, though Sarah didn't know his name yet, had been having the worst week of his life. His company's merger was falling apart. His girlfriend had left him for his business partner, and now some reckless delivery driver had just destroyed his car. "Do you have any idea?" he started, his voice cold enough to freeze the rain. "I'm so sorry," Sarah interrupted, words tumbling out in a panic. "I'll pay for everything. I have insurance, I think, or I can work out payments. Please, this is my uncle's truck. He's in the hospital and I'm trying to—" Her voice cracked. The stress of the day, the fear for Uncle Wei, the crushing weight of responsibility, it all came crashing down at once. To her absolute horror, tears started streaming down her face, mixing with the rain. James's anger deflated like a punctured tire. He'd been ready to unleash hell on whoever had damaged his car. But the sight of this young woman, soaked to the bone, clearly exhausted, breaking down in the middle of the street, stirred something he'd thought his corporate existence had killed compassion. Hey, it's okay," he heard himself saying, his tone completely transformed. He grabbed an umbrella from his back seat and stepped out into the rain, holding it over her head. "It's just a car." "Are you hurt?" Sarah shook her head, trying to compose herself and failing miserably. "I'm fine." "I'm sorry. God, I can't believe I'm crying." "I never cry. It's just been such a long day, and my uncle, he had a heart attack yesterday, and this business is all he has, and I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm trying so hard." She stopped herself, realizing she was word vomiting all over a stranger who probably just wanted her insurance information. But James wasn't looking at her like she was crazy. He was looking at her like he actually understood. "Your uncle's in the hospital and you're out here running his deliveries?" "Someone has to. These restaurants depend on him. His employees depend on him. What else was I supposed to do?" The question was rhetorical, but the answer revealed everything about who Sarah was. James studied her for a long moment, rain dripping off the edge of the umbrella. Something shifted in his chest, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years of corporate maneuvering and profit margins. Here was someone sacrificing everything for family, for strangers, for loyalty. When was the last time he'd done something that wasn't calculated for maximum personal gain? "What's your next delivery?" he asked suddenly. Sarah blinked, confused by the change in subject. Le Bernardin? It's a fancy restaurant a few blocks from here." "Why?" "Because you're dead on your feet, and this rain is getting worse. I'm coming with you." He pulled out his phone before she could protest. "Michael, it's James. I need you to send a crew to 5th and Madison to handle a minor fender bender and clear my schedule for the rest of the day." He hung up and looked at Sarah expectantly. "Well, we've got deliveries to make. I can't ask you to—" "Wait, did you just cancel your afternoon for a stranger?" "You didn't ask. I'm volunteering. And technically, you're not a stranger anymore. I'm James, by the way. James Morrison." He extended his hand. "Sarah Chen." She shook his hand, still bewildered. "But seriously, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to. I want to." "When's the last time you did something you didn't have to do?" He gestured at the truck, at her soaked clothes, at the manifest clutched in her hand. "You're already showing me how it's done." For the next 4 hours, James Morrison, CEO of Morrison Capital, a man whose time was billed at thousands of dollars per hour, hauled restaurant equipment through the rain-soaked streets of Manhattan. He carried 50-pound crates of vegetables, helped Sarah navigate impossible parking spots, and charmed cranky restaurant managers into overlooking their late deliveries. At stop 39, he bought them both coffee and insisted Sarah eat something. At stop 42, he made her laugh with a disastrous attempt at using the hand truck, sending canned goods rolling down a loading ramp. "You're terrible at this," Sarah teased, her exhaustion temporarily forgotten. "Worst delivery guy in New York," James agreed, grinning. He couldn't remember the last time he'd smiled like this, genuinely, without agenda. "But I'm learning from the best." As they completed the final delivery, the rain finally stopped. Late afternoon sun broke through the clouds, casting everything in golden light. They stood by the truck, both exhausted, both filthy, and James realized he hadn't thought about his failing merger or his ex-girlfriend once in the past 4 hours. He'd been too busy being useful, being needed, being human. "Thank you," Sarah said softly. "You didn't have to do any of this. I crashed into your car, and you spent your whole afternoon helping me. I don't even know what that is." "It's what people used to do," James said, "before we all got too busy climbing ladders and chasing success. You reminded me what actually matters." He paused, then pulled out his business card. "Listen, I know your uncle's probably worried about the business while he recovers. I have connections, restaurants, suppliers, logistics companies. Let me help set up a temporary support system until he's back on his feet." Sarah stared at the card, then at James. "Why would you do this?" "Because today a complete stranger showed me what selflessness looks like. She sacrificed her classes, her sleep, her everything to help someone she loves. That's rare, Sarah, that's special. And maybe if I help you, I can be a little bit more like that too." 3 months later, Uncle Wei stood in his warehouse, healthy and beaming, watching Sarah direct the new team of drivers James had helped him hire. The business had not only survived, it had thrived. James visited every Tuesday, insisting on riding along on deliveries, claiming it kept him grounded. He and Sarah had become inseparable, though neither had worked up the courage to call it what it was yet. "You know," Uncle Wei said to Sarah as James struggled to load a hand truck, still terrible at the job. When I had that heart attack, I thought I might lose everything. Instead, you found everything for both of us. Sarah watched James. This millionaire CEO who'd chosen humanity over convenience, who'd seen her at her worst and stayed anyway, who'd learned that real wealth wasn't in bank accounts but in moments like these, messy, imperfect, beautiful. She'd replaced her uncle as a driver for just one day, but that day had replaced everything she'd thought she knew about the world. Sometimes destiny doesn't arrive in grand gestures or perfect circumstances. Sometimes it crashes into you on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, and if you're brave enough to see past the damage, if you're kind enough to help a stranger, if you're human enough to remember what truly matters, that's when real magic happens. That's when a dent in a Mercedes becomes the first sentence in a love story, when exhaustion becomes purpose, when an accident becomes fate, and that's when you learn that the most valuable things in life can't be delivered on a schedule or bought with money. They can only be given freely, one small act of kindness at a time, until those acts build something unbreakable: connection, hope, and the radical notion that we're all better when we choose each other.